Why is the body important in mindfulness? Why bother? Body is everything.
Mind goes off on all sorts of tangents. When you left your body, you know what you are.
Right. Okay. So one is body is right here in the present, right? It's always there with you. And so one of the reasons that it's important is it's like the breath. It is an anchor to get the mind back. Yeah. Body wouldn't lie. Yeah. So the body coming, the mind coming back to the body and unifying with the body, right, is very important in mindfulness practice, and it's also very important in understanding ourselves, first of all, because it's telling us what is really going on versus what is the interpretation of the mind. Now, the second is because embodiment is a very important part of mindfulness also. Now, what is embodiment? What do you think is embodiment? When do we say embodied? You're more embodied feeling. Yeah, you were saying something, Neha. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So embodiment is when you can feel the feelings in the body, when you're responding with the body, not just mentally responding, but you're open to feeling the feelings in your body, then you're embodied. What happens usually is that, like I was telling and explaining, when something unpleasant comes in, we get disembodied. And how does that happen?
You identify with the mind.
Yeah, you completely get into the story, and the story takes you to what happened, why it happened, how it happened, justifications, rationalizations, should nots, all those associated thinking happened before, I have this pattern, even if it is about your own patterns. It's taking you somewhere, but not allowing you to feel that unpleasant feeling truly, fully in the body, in the moment, right? And when we habitually go through this, moment after moment, incidents after incident, slowly we start to get disembodied, which means slowly we start to lose connection with the body. When we do mindfulness of the body, some of you will notice that there are parts of your body that are shut down, like you don't feel them fully. And the reason that you don't feel them fully is because they have not been paid attention to, right? For example, let's take an example, loneliness. When you feel lonely, what do? You read a book, check social media. What else? Yeah, so how? What do you try? Not what try? What do you do? Shun the feeling, right? So you see, and loneliness is a genuine, existentially like a genuine feeling. There is nobody in this room who wouldn't have felt lonely. There is nobody ever, when I talk about these things, who has not felt lonely. So, what happens when you read a book or shun the feeling or go to social media? What happens? Right? And where is the experience of loneliness? Where do you feel lonely? Maybe in the throat, maybe in the heart, maybe in the hands, maybe in the feet, somewhere. Everybody feels it differently. But the moment you say, I'm not looking at this loneliness because it's unpleasant, I have to move to something else, what have we done to that loneliness in the body? The experience of loneliness exists as a reality in the body in this moment. When we move away, what do we need to do to the body?
Calm down, relax, and then you keep moving.
But we are not even relaxing, we are distracting, we are cutting. See what we are doing. We are not even really looking and calming down. Even that is one thing. Most of the time we are just moving away. We are like breaking the We are detaching completely. And we are not detaching knowingly what is we are distracting. So when we cut the feeling away and not pay attention to it completely, what happens? There is something happening here, it never got seen. Then the next time it happened, it never got seen. Then the third time it happened, it never got seen. Slowly, so in order not to feel the feeling, you have to shut the part of the body in some way out of your awareness. Because if that body part remains in your awareness, it will keep making you feel the feeling. So, in order to not feel the feeling, you have to also stop feeling the body. When you stop feeling the body, you get disembodied. And then you start dealing with even if you start thinking about the feeling, even if you start solving my problem of loneliness in the mind, you still have to shut down the body, because while you are trying to solve the problem of loneliness, you are not feeling the loneliness. You still moved away. So, lot of our tendencies are to move away from unpleasantness, and in that process, we move away from very genuine feelings that we have. And as we live, these feelings are bound to happen. But our processes are such that we want to shut them down. So when that shrug makes you unhappy and you move somewhere else, you've shut down some part of your body that feels a certain way with that shrug. There's no awareness of what that process was, right? It's something we do all the time, and all of us do all the time, because it's not easy. But this is the price. There's a price we are paying, and the price is the price of disappointment. Okay? Now, slowly, as you get disembodied, certain patterns start to come about as a personality. Right? The same defenses, and that will come to next, the same defenses kind of become more wired in your system. Your habit patterns, the more you shut down some part, the more you tend to shut down some part. And we'll see why that happens. But the point is that when there is an uncomfortable feeling, right, one wants to quickly move out of it rather than see why it is there. There's a beautiful story that Buddha told his disciples about this. In one discourse, he said that he got a silk handkerchief to the discourse. And he said, today I'm going to teach you about this silk handkerchief. Okay? And he continued, he said, what do you see? So everybody said, well, we see a beautiful silk handkerchief. I said, okay. He started to tie knots in that handkerchief. He tied 5 knots in that handkerchief. And he said, now what do you see? And people said, well, now we see the same handkerchief, but there are 5 knots in that handkerchief. And he said, okay, I want to open these knots. So what shall I do? Shall I pull this from both sides? And he started pulling it from both sides. And people said, no, that way the knots will get tightened, don't do that. So he said, okay, you tell me, what should I do? And that's the answer you need to also give. What is to be done when there is a tight knot? What is the first thing to be done? How? Bring what together? You relax it. What else? Yeah, so in order to see how it got tied, you first have to look at the knot. You have to observe the knot, right? Only then you will find a way to untie the knot. But what we do is, this loneliness, we don't want to see. We want to untie it, but we don't want to see it. He's giving a very deep message to his disciples. He's saying that I am also the silken handkerchief, you are also the silken handkerchief. The only difference is you are in knots and you're pulling those knots. Like, observe them first and then see what needs to be done. So, first is to come in and observe what's going on. Right? Nobody likes a knot. Everybody wants to be the free handkerchief. Who likes to be in knots? But unless we observe, how do we open them? How do we deal with them, right? And that's his discourse. And he says, okay, now you can go and meditate upon this. That's the end of the discourse. That's not the end of our talk, but that's the end of the discourse. So I feel he's giving a very clear message about this kind of functioning, about not willing to look at the knots, not willing to look at what's difficult, right? Now let's look at another important concept of what happens and how the body works. Right? So a little bit about the nervous system. Right? The nervous system has nerves connecting the brain to all parts of the body, right? And all parts of the body get connected back to the brain, right? So there are efferent nerves connecting the brain to the body and afferent nerves that connect the body to the brain. And the way any impulse moves from the brain to the body or vice versa is through a nerve, and every nerve has neurons, right? So every nerve has these small cells which pass the impulse one to the other, right? Now there's something known as Hebb's rule, which says, anybody from previous 8-week courses can say what the Hebb's rule is? Huh? No? So, the Hebb's rule is, yes, neurons that fire together, wire together. Now, this is very important. This is the basis of what is known as neuroplasticity. Up till 1980, almost until the 80s, it was believed that the brain has set patterns. Once you learn certain patterns, they don't change. They just stay that way. Then there was research done by Professor Michael Merzenich in the 1980s, which turned this whole concept on its head, and it proved that the brain had a certain plasticity, a certain moldability, which means that set patterns in the brain, or rather the brain kept changing with changing patterns, right? And how that happened was by this concept. Now what happens? Let's take an example of what? Social anxiety. Okay? What happens when you're, let's say what happens when a person has social anxiety? What are the kind of thoughts this person has? Nobody likes me. What else? I'm inadequate. Yes. So there are feelings of inadequacy, thoughts of nobody likes me. What else? Doesn't want to be. So there are behaviors of avoidance of social situations, right? So avoidance. He won't go to social situations, let's say. What else? Yeah. Yeah. So feelings of inadequacy, right? Anxiety. What else? So sensations, right? Heart beating, right? Palpitations. What else? What else? We are trying to make a social anxiety pattern here. There are thoughts, there are feelings, there are actual behaviors like not going to social situations. When somebody calls up and says there's a party, it starts with a fear, anxiety. I don't know if I want to go, that I don't know converts into heart beating, it converts into resistance in the body, you don't want to go. What if you find yourself in a social situation? If this person finds himself in a social situation, not making eye contact, right? Looking away, looking at somebody crossing the road, whatever, right? It's a whole pattern. It includes thoughts, feelings, behaviors, body sensations, bodily actions, right? Now, everything is associated with what? A brain impulse. To not make eye contact, you need certain nerves and neurons to fire related to eye contact. To feel inadequate, you need certain nerves and neurons to fire, which is associated with this feeling of inadequacy. If a heart to beat, you need certain neurons to fire to make the heart palpitate, or clench the stomach. A whole thinking, feeling, behaving, sensing pattern is going on here, right? Now, all the neurons that are associated with this entire pattern, so to say, are firing together. The way an impulse passes through the nerve is by one neuron firing, sending the impulse to the other neuron. That neuron fires, sends impulse to the other neuron. That neuron fires. So, and this happening very, very, very quickly. So, the neurons are firing. Now, neurons associated with this entire pattern are firing together. Every time this person has social anxiety, similar things come up, and one person's social anxiety will involve avoidance, the other person will go but avoid eye contact, so it's different. But for every unique individual, there's a pattern, and neurons associated with that pattern are firing together, right? And now what is this rule saying? Neurons that fire together, wire together. What does they become habituated, they become friends, they become associated. Now this is a very, very important thing. It means that every time this set of neurons fire together, they become more and more connected with each other, as opposed to other neurons which are related to other patterns, right? The more they fire together, the more they get connected. So every time the social anxiety comes up and the same neurons fire together, the more they get close to each other. Then what starts to happen? What starts to happen that they become a kind of a neural pathway, a dominant and bodily nervous system tendency to be in that way, because now they have got completely wired and entrenched. Yes, and then any trigger for anything can lead to the entire pattern coming up. So it may not always then be social anxiety, it can even be something that creates just anxiety, and then the whole pattern of avoidance, whatever can come up. Now, this is a very important rule, right? This is same with, let's say, restlessness. You are sitting, you're unable to be with that space. All these tendencies are tendencies of the neural patterns wiring together and firing together. The more they happen in the same way, the more they will get connected. So now the implication becomes that each time you go through a pattern that causes you suffering, you are more likely to suffer the next time. Your body is only getting more prepared to go through that kind of same suffering again. Right? So what do we need to do? Just logically become aware of it, observe it, and what will that do?
You know it is there. You know it is there, accept it.
Yes, you know it's there, you accept it. What do you think that is going to do from a neurological point of view? It will add certain more dimensions to this pattern, which is a dimension of awareness or relaxed alertness or whatever it is that you are practicing, right? So now this person, yeah, exactly. So what's going to happen is that this person is now, all this was going on, and now learns some mindfulness, let's say, and then says, before the person knows it, the pattern has kicked in, because the pattern kicks in involuntarily. The pattern is in the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is the one that is involved in digestion and respiration and all these things which are not in our control. So it's anyway taking part, the autonomic nervous system is anyway controlling all these processes and therefore controlling this entire pattern also. It's not like we think ourselves into these patterns. The pattern comes up before we can even think, actually, right? So then at some point this person will recognize, my heart is beating, I don't want to go to this party, I am feeling anxious, let me come back to my breath. Let me try and open up my shoulders, which have hunched, because I recognize it through mindfulness. Let me try and ease my belly because I recognize it through mindfulness, right? Now what has started to happen? A new set of neurons has started to fire. Neurons associated with relaxation, neurons associated with awareness, neurons associated with the mind going into thinking and getting the thinking back to the present moment, neurons associated with compassion and acceptance of this pattern in the first place. Now a new set of neurons is firing along with the old set of neurons. And now there is an opportunity for a new neural pathway, a different pattern to build in. So it's happening very systematically. And this is neuroplasticity. When these neurons, the firing and wiring of these neurons changes, the brain's tendencies change. Right? Because it is informing the nervous system change. The nervous system's neurons change, the brain changes. So you are changing your mind to change your brain. And then your brain helps further in changing your mind. And the more number of times you are able to bring relaxed awareness to this pattern, the more number of times your suffering reduces, and the more chances for the suffering to continue to reduce each time that pattern is repeated. So the reason it's so difficult to pay attention to unpleasant stimulus now is because this is very entrenched and this is very new. This is like a highway. This is like a small new path that you're building. It's going to be difficult. It's not, the ease of access is not there right now. But as these neurons are going to start wiring with the old pattern, a new pattern will start building, which as it is practiced, it will become entrenched. Therefore, it is not knowledge, it is practice. Therefore, it's about sitting, doing your practice, sitting with yourself, and not about knowing it, because knowing it is just a little bit. There's very few neurons are getting, only a small pattern is getting added. But when you're actually noticing, accepting, relaxing, bodily relaxing, being compassionate, a whole new pattern can get formed. This is how the brain changes in mindfulness. And this is why the body is extremely important. Because everything is in the body also, not just in the brain. Any questions about this? Okay, so that's why when we meditate today, we will bring the body in. We will bring in the aspect of the body. We'll do two practices today before we get over. One before the break now and one after. What we will do before the break is we will create a kind of a bridge practice between the breath and the body. So we'll use the breath to start noticing the body. And then what we will do after the break is a pure body scan meditation where we'll notice each part of the body, right? With all of that meditation, the idea is that we are trying to be rested with what we see. Now, when you start looking into the body, you will start noticing areas that you're not able to notice, things you're not able to feel, things that feel tight, things that feel painful, things that feel uneasy. Everything is an opportunity to practice this. To practice non-judgmental, non-reactive, compassionate awareness. Everything is an opportunity. There will be things that you'll feel very pleasant about. And when you go and grasp into pleasant stuff, that's also a pattern that we have. So when you stay relaxed about even pleasant things, but not too attached, even about pleasant things, then you're creating an ability to be with what is there. Without saying, I want pleasant, I don't want unpleasant, this is not good, making meaning, fixing. So we are avoiding all that, and we are doing it right here, like the closest to us possible. And when we can actually create that environment for ourselves, even slowly, look within our bodies and be relaxed about what we see, that practice, because of the neural firing, wiring, and the pattern, generalizes to other things in life as well. Because the neurons become used to firing with unpleasant situations. Right? So it doesn't stay limited to the cushion then. It moves to life because of this. Because the brain is changing. Because now it's shifting. It's become more plastic. most people who have done even some mindfulness meditation in the past, maybe these guys who repeat also will tell you that certain things have shifted, certain ways of looking at things, or certain things that don't impact you as much, like certain things that were there just seem to be a little different now. Yeah, like for me, it used to be sometimes even surprising that how certain things are not bothering me as much anymore, because I knew that my reaction to certain things would be like they would stay with me for a long time, or I wouldn't be able to let go easily. And then I could let go easily without even recognizing or without even working with that, simply by sitting and meditating and being mindful in the day, because things are anyway changing. You are with multiple opportunities you're working, so a whole new set of neural pathways is getting created, which is getting entrenched into the system by repetition. Okay, good enough science for the day, I guess.